unity in Africa. So, Professor Babatunde, you have the floor.
You want to stand or?
You can start.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
I was told that I will be addressing a group of science students. You're all studying mathematics. I have two law students there at the back. They've come to give me support in case you guys want to attack me, mathematically speaking. Yes, and I would like to introduce them. That's Tato. Tato Sente is the president of the Black Lawyers Association, the UNISA campus. And he's also trying to start a platform to get young people together to do serious work on African integration. And sitting next to him is Sello Selala. He's a postgraduate student, and he also works with me at the department. And he's also writing on the African Union, actually. His writing is even more radical than what we're going to be talking about today. But yes, so those are the two bodyguards that will be protecting me from you guys. So let's get straight to it. It's always fascinating to talk about the African Union. I've been working on the African Union processes for close to 10 years now. Working on research and talking about the African Union at different platforms, at different forums within and outside the continent of Africa. And if I may ask you guys, do you guys know anything about the African Union? Before we even go into it, let's engage first. The African Union, please, tell me.
Yeah, the African Union is known as the, what can I say, a union for African countries.
For African countries?
Yeah.
So, meaning all African countries are part of it?
Yeah, meaning all African countries are part of it. It's based in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. And
yes.
then, yeah, for developments and anything for Africa, then they will be developed in Ethiopia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Any other addition to it? I think he's covered practically everything, except for people who know about it, so they shouldn't even interfere in this discussion. Any other addition? Any other contribution to the African Union or what the African Union is? Okay. Oh, yes.
So I think that African Union is involving the 44 countries in Africa. 54. Oh, sorry. 54 countries. Yes, 54 countries in Africa. And also it is a Pan-Africanist group.
Okay. Meaning
that some country where you can see black people like Haiti, for example, can join this movement.
Okay.
That's what I can say.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And you see, it is of extreme importance to know about the African Union. In fact, every African must know about the African Union. And it is an indictment on people who, the political elites, that many people don't know about the African Union. In fact, you guys, I'm not even going to criticize you guys. You guys are in the sciences. There are many people who are in the liberal arts and studying law actually who don't know about the African Union. And they should know about the African Union. In fact, the African Union should be taught from the primary school. And the reason is this. It is the only institution, it is actually the primary institution that includes all African countries. In fact, it is the beginning and the end. It is the institution that is charged with the responsibility of driving the development of Africa, of taking Africa from where it is now, you see, to the promised land. And what is the promised land? The promised land is where we have a united Africa, where at some point we would have what they call the United States of Africa, which Kwame Nkrumah advocated for, where we harmonize and bring together all the structures of Africa, right? and we don't try. I mean, part of the things we are looking forward to is to have an African army, an African stand force, where we'll be able to prevent conflicts on this continent. I'm sure everybody here knows that there are many conflicts on this continent, isn't it? Millions of Africans are dying from, you know, man-made conflicts, from Sudan to Burundi to Somalia, you know, even to Nigeria, where you have people facing Boko Haram, the insurgents, the Boko Haram insurgents. Now, and to also travel across this continent without a visa. Do you guys know that Africa is the most closed continent in the world, in the sense that for an African to move around from one country to the other, it is very difficult. You need a visa to go to 55% of African countries. That is the highest for any region in the world. So we still struggle to travel. A young African cannot say, oh, yeah, I actually love Ghana. I want to go to Ghana. As a South African citizen, I want to go to Ghana. I want to see what I can do in Ghana. You can't just pack your bags and leave. You first have to go to the embassy there. And you have to fill forms and forms and forms and forms. And an American would not need a visa to travel across Africa. But you as an African citizen will need that kind of visa. So in snapshot, that's what the African Union intends to achieve, to bring prosperity to this continent. For young Africans like you to understand that development starts with us, and we are going into a place where we can unite Africa. We can unite, we can harmonize the political and the economic structures of this continent. And I'm sure, is everyone with me here? Do you agree that we should go to that place, to that promised land?
Yes.
You think we should go to that promised land, right? Where we do not hate each other, where we do not need there are no restrictions for us to move around and for us to make our impact on development in Africa. So these are the things I'll be going through. I'll be explaining them one by one. When you talk about the African Union, take your mind back to 19th in the world. The first in the world, Article 4H. It says the African Union will in fact even intervene when they realize that a particular government is involved in genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, against its own people. So for example, if the president just sets a gun or bomb and starts killing his people, right? Or killing a particular section of his society, like what we had in Rwanda in 1994. If any government does that, the African Union would set up a military force and go into that country to stop it. That was the first in the world. The first instrument in the world to actually say that. And this is what people have recognized as the responsibility to protect. R2P. Responsibility to protect. But let me tell you guys here today that the African Union, since 2000, this has been involved in included in its constitutive act, it has never activated it. It has never been activated. So this is one of the criticisms of the African Union. There are many places where you would have expected the African Union to intervene. People have spoken about Burundi, for example, but the African Union has shied away from activating Article 4H. Article 23 says any country that fails to comply or fails to abide by all of these principles shall be suspended or fined, in fact, or kicked out of the institution. And the African Union has actually used this a lot. Mauritania has been suspended because of a military coup. Togo was once suspended because there was a military coup in Togo. So many countries have been suspended here and there. Article 25, which is also very important, says what are the working languages. So English shall be one of the languages of interaction. So when African leaders are meeting, there will be interpreters all over. So English, French, Portuguese, those are the most widely spoken languages in Africa. And they've included Swahili. Arabic is actually the most widely spoken language. Arabic and Swahili, they're the two big, two most widely spoken languages on the continent. and Swahili as a matter of fact.
And North Africa.
So, and Article 30 says, if you have come to power by, through unconstitutional means, that is, if there's been no democracy, no elections that has brought you to power, you will also be suspended. You will not be allowed to participate as a country in the African Union. So what are the institutions? These are the institutions you need to know about. The primary institution in the African Union is what you call the African Union Assembly. The assembly is where all the leaders of the African Union meet. That is where decisions are taken in the African Union. The Executive Council, ministers of foreign affairs, actually meet through the Executive Council. Again, it's one of the primary decision-making powers. The Specialized Technical Council is the Pan-African Parliament, which I've already spoken about. It's situated in Midrand. 5 parliamentarians per country is represented, where they discuss and deliberate on African issues. So it's like the African Parliament, like what you have in Cape Town, but at the African level. So every member of the AU has 5 representatives there. The African Court of Justice and Human Rights, which is located in Arusha, Tanzania, is also the primary court on the continent. And you have financial institutions as well, which have not been created, because there's the vision to create the African Central Bank. Remember, one of the visions is to have a common currency, isn't it? So that we spend the same currency. And who will be issuing those currencies? It's going to be the African Central Bank, which will be located in Lagos, Nigeria, at some point. The African Investment Bank as well will also be created. None of these financial institutions have been created yet, but we anticipate or we envisage that they will be created at some point. The Commission is the engine room. In fact, that is where you have the headquarters of the African Union in Addis Ababa. And who knows where is the African Commission now, as we speak, although it's going to change next month. Africa would look like in 50 years. It was developed within the Commission. So you have Madam Zuma sitting there as the president or as the chair of the AU Commission, and she's assisted by a deputy chair and also by 8 commissioners. She has 8 commissioners dealing with different portfolios. So she's like the president, right? With ministers dealing with different portfolios. Then you have the Permanent Representative Council, located in Addis Ababa as well, where every country has an ambassador in Addis Ababa, right? Represented here, the Permanent Representative Council, because they are the ones who interface with the African Union and discuss their issues in Addis Ababa. And you have the Economic, Social and Cultural Council, which is known as ECOSOC. ECOSOC is where civil societies, you and I, people like us, are supposed to participate in the African Union processes, right? Through ECOSOC. And you have the very important one, this last one, last but not the least, the Peace and Security Council, which has 15 member states. They take decisions on how to address peace and security challenges in Africa. And why do you think we need this institution, this Peace and Security Council?
There's no conflict.
There's so many conflicts on the continent. So many conflicts. And you need a council who discusses and who decides on where and when to send the African Standby Force, which again is yet to come to life. The African Standby Force, the plan is to have about 35,000 army officers, right, who would be sent and deployed to conflict situations in Africa. So these are still plans that the African Union is working towards. The AU and its regional economic communities. The AU is divided, or the Africa as a region is divided into 5 regions, right? And who can tell me the regions? If you think about Africa, if you take out the map of Africa, if you divide Africa, how many regions, which are the regions do you think? SADC, of course, which is in Southern Africa.
Then we have the West.
We have West Africa.
We have East Africa.
We have East Africa. North Africa. North Africa, exactly, it's the one at the top. Exactly, actually it's the one at the top. So we have North Africa, we have East, West, Central, and Southern Africa. You see, these are 5 regions. And the AU says we also have another region. It might not be on the map, but the symbolic, the spiritual sixth region. What region are you?
I think this Central Caribbean.
The Caribbean, exactly. The Caribbean. That is the black. Remember, black people were taken as slaves from this continent. They were scattered all over the world. Many you find in Brazil, in Cuba, in Haiti, Jamaica, and black Americans as well, African Americans. So they were taken there, and the African Union says we must see them as part of us, right? So it's the sixth region. It is actually called the sixth region, and that is the region Haiti is represented. And that's the basis for Haiti becoming part of the African Union in June.
So isn't because of Caribbeans is part of Central America, so it's not going to cause any conflict between
No, there's not.
America and
No. It won't cause any conflict. I mean, they're part of they're allowed to be part of some are part of South America. Many actually fall within the South America region. Some Central America and the rest. But there's not going to be any much problem because you see, geopolitically speaking, it won't give America much, or in the North, it won't give them much problems actually. As you can see, the African Union is still struggling to become very important, right? So with all the problems we still have, I'm sure they will just say, oh yeah, good for them, not necessarily to be seen as threats. So the African Union recognizes 8 sub-regional units, 8, which you find here. ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, SADC, Southern African Development Community, EAC, East African Community, IGAD, Intergovernmental Authority on Development, COMESA, which is the biggest, actually, Community Market of Eastern and Southern Africa, CENSAD, which is Community of Sahel, the Sahel states, ECAS, Economic Community of Central African States, and AMU, Arab Maghreb Union, which is for North Africa. You see, all of these 8 are regarded as the building blocks. You see, the idea is that at some point, these 8 units would have developed to a point where they will now come together and form a grand United States of Africa. Right? That's the plan. Of course, there's so many problems which we're still going to be looking at later. So, and what have they achieved? Some of them have achieved relatively good initiatives. I mean, for example, in West Africa, there's a passport. There's an ECOWAS passport. Actually, I wish I could show you one here. I don't have my passport on me. Every country in West Africa carries citizens of the 15 member states actually carry what you know as the ECOWAS passport, because ECOWAS has been able to harmonize, to unite, so that you don't need visas to travel across West Africa. East Africa as well has achieved significant developments in that regard as well, where people can travel across East Africa even with their national IDs. Right? Imagine it's like you wanted to go to Lesotho or Botswana, and all you need is your South African ID, not even a passport. They've been able to achieve that in East Africa. There's a customs union in East Africa. There's a free trade area in SADC. So there's been quite a number of initiatives. I mean, SACU, Southern African Customs Union, which is not part of the 8, has been able, it's the oldest customs union in the world. The oldest customs union in the world. So, and you have all of those initiatives. You have in West Africa, in the YMO part of West Africa, you have people spend the same currency, CEPAs, and they have a bank, a common bank, that actually handles that. So there's been initiatives, there have been developments, but they are scattered developments. They have not come together. And that's the reason why you guys don't even know about them. The idea is that the AU will at some point bring all of these things together and will be able to develop, or will be able to go forward. Agenda 2063, I'm sure you guys have heard about it because it was advertised, you know. It's part of one of the key plans of Agenda 2063, again, is to create a framework where there would be, you know, in 50 years, Africa would have come, you know, many of these policies would have come together. we would not need visas to travel across Africa, right? There will be trade, free trade across the continent. You know, Africa, as I said earlier, is still the most closed continent in the world. Africa has not opened up. So we need free trade. We need to be able to take goods from here to Nigeria, for example, without paying import duties, right? You need to be able to set companies here, set up companies here, and be able to operate freely. In Kenya, for example, without having, you need to be able to even go as a student, to travel as a student to, for example, Kenya, or to, for example, Rwanda, to study, and pay the same fees as Rwandese students in Rwanda. You see, that's the vision. Because remember, in South Africa, if you are a foreign student, if you're not part of SADC, you pay double the amount, right? But the African Union is trying to eliminate all of those things. Let's see each other as one, and not create these barriers, and not create, the other, so to speak, right? Those are the visions, and those are the things we're still trying to achieve. And, by understanding, by knowing all of these things, the expectation is that you guys will also be able to contribute in your own way. Because I'm sure you started to ask yourself different questions now. How do I contribute? Right? Leaders take decisions, right? But what can I do as a person? There's a lot you can do. There's a lot you can do. In terms of coming together, in terms of understanding that, you see, togetherness is much more better for understanding the Africanness, the shared heritage that we have, and desisting from acts of xenophobia or, casting the other as the enemy, right? There's a lot that you can do. So what are the challenges we have? So many challenges. You see, so many challenges. I just explained to you now that we have 8 recognized sub-regional organizations. You realize that some countries belong to 3 or 4 of these sub-regional organizations. And you ask yourself, like you say, okay, so what's the problem with that? Lots of problems. Because there's no mahala. You see, you have to pay. You have to pay for these things. So you have to pay your subscription fees. And many of these countries can only pay for one, but they're in 4 sub-regional organizations. All these organizations need money. They are very, very capital intensive. They need money for activities. And you realize that countries fail to pay because some countries are poor. Or even if they are not poor, they are paying to 4 or 5 organizations, which also means that they're not able to concentrate on that which is extremely important. Then, you see, many African countries also fail to abide by the rules. I'm sure when you're looking at Burundi, for example, let's use Burundi as an example. There's been serious violations of the African Union standards, Articles 3 and 4. There's been serious violations of the East African community, because Burundi belongs to the East African community. The president has changed. In spite of everything, he changed his term of office. He was supposed to be there for 2 terms. And because he wanted to extend his term of office, he changed it, he rigged the referendum, there was a court judgment, he did not even respond to the court judgment. So there's been serious violations. So countries begin to deliberately. Zimbabwe refused to implement the decision of the SADC tribunal. Right? You find it across the continent. So it's becoming a big problem. Countries don't take this institution seriously. They feel, so what's the worst that will happen? I mean, the African Union has no powers to come after me anyways. So they violate it. And the more you violate it, the more you are telling people, or you are telling your citizens, that this is nonsense, this is nothing. Then, of course, the institutions are also very weak. They are very weak. They cannot enforce. You see, African Union is very weak. It relies on its member states. So when member states violate some of these rules, it has no capacity, be it human, financial capacity, to go after member states and to tell member states to stop. Or to say, if you do not stop, we will deal with you. And you see, it's like when you talk to a baby, He said, don't take that. If you take that, and baby looks at you and smiles and continues anyways, regardless of what you have done, what you said. So you can see you are not very assertive. The AU would want to be able to suspend members and to enforce some of its principles, but it has to rely on member states for that. But member states do not check it. They rarely comply. And we also have different legal traditions. In Africa, remember, we were colonized by the French, by the Portuguese, by the English. So each country has taken, legal traditions from these ex-colonial powers. And because we have not harmonized, that's why we are saying, okay, we know we have different legal traditions. Let us harmonize our structures. So we have one standard, right? So we don't say, oh, when it goes to Mozambique, you see how we implement this because they have a completely different legal tradition from South Africa. Obviously, they would have different legal tradition from South Africa because they were colonized by different different countries. So, or you go from Cameroon to Nigeria. Cameroon actually has what you call a bidural system because Cameroon, you have the English-speaking Cameroon and the French-speaking Cameroon. But now, if you take the French-speaking Cameroon, the French Civil Code, and you compare it to English common law in Nigeria, you see, again, they are different. So what we are saying is this, let us harmonize our structures, let's bring our standards together so we can create one rule that we will all abide with. And that's still a big problem on the continent. Those are still things we are grappling with. And little or no civil society participation. We do not know about the African Union. Nobody here asked. What do you know? You go to Europe. I have taught in Europe, and when I asked students, I was in Portugal, and I asked students about the European Union, and undergraduate students, they could tell me things about the European Union because it is part of their system, part of their curriculum, right? They could talk about the European. They could talk about regulations of the European Union, they talk about directives. But if you go to an average class in Africa, you ask, it is very difficult because even to know about the African Union or the regional integration process in Africa, you need to learn about it at your postgraduate level. And that is if you're doing something similar, something about it. So you need to write a master's, not even honors. You need to write a master's program on regional integration. And how many people are actually doing that in Africa? Very few, right? So meaning, nobody knows. And the idea, you see, many have argued, SKB Asante, the Ghanaian academic, argued as far back as the mid-90s that African Union or the regional integration process should be taught from nursery and primary school. Kids, even in nursery and primary school, forget about university. Kids in nursery and primary school should be able to tell you how many countries are in the African Union when you ask them. Do you think it's impossible to do that? No. Do you think that's too much to ask? When you just ask them, how many countries in Africa? I'm not saying teach them these things, but I'm saying, at least let's start with the basics. And they say, oh, what do we mean by the African Union? The flag of the African Union. They should be able to look at the flag and say, no, that's not African flag, that's the African Union flag. They should be able to tell you what we are aiming to aspiring towards. Sorry for continuation.
Yeah, I think the other problem is when I was still in middle school, yeah, there was a problem of we taught more about apartheid than Hitler, you know? So I got taught more about Hitler than apartheid. And then when that guy said he admired Hitler, I was not as surprised because of this guy is my age group, and then he got taught more about Hitler than apartheid. You understand?
Yes. Yeah. So we need to start rethinking many of those processes. You see, we need to start catch them young, citywide. Make sure we start from, so that by the time you walk into any class, any university in Africa, and ask a student about the African Union, they should be able to tell you things about the African Union. At least, even if you're doing mathematics, science, and technology, there are various protocols on regional integration that speaks to science and technology. You should be able to tell me about NEPAD, the NEPAD policy framework, on ICT. You should be able to tell me about the African Union processes on the ICT, on SADC framework, right? So every aspect should be taught. I'm not saying people should now be teaching you about cases in the African Court of Human and People's Rights. That's not what I'm saying. You teach that to law students. But when it comes to things that are very important for your field, and that links your field to regional integration process, I think it's not too much that we teach that. And so we need to involve civil society, yes?
Yes, I think another challenge that you haven't mentioned, I think it's leadership.
But leadership, yeah, you're right. You're very right. Look,
our leaders are not well, like, trained for leadership or receive them education for leadership.
And because you see, leaders also willfully disregard. So leadership also, because you see, at times you need leadership, the right leadership, to do all of these things we are talking about. The right leadership to take a unilateral decision, like what Namibia does. Do you guys know that there's the African Union anthem? You don't know, right? But they actually sing it in Namibia. Namibian students actually know what they sing it in high school. And President Zuma did something last year during Africa Day. He made sure that kids across public schools sang the African. The Africa Day is just a few days from here. I think they'll do the same thing. The flags of the AU should be flown next to the South African flag, and they should sing the AU anthem, not national anthem, the AU anthem. So these are symbolic issues, very simple. It does not even cost anybody. But you need the right kind of leadership to say, this is the vision we are aspiring, not to shout at in Addis Ababa, and when you come back to your country, you don't do anything, you don't implement that. So you're very right about that. You're very, very right. Leadership is very, very key. So how do we go from here? Or where do we go from here? How do we move ahead to the vision we want, the African we want? There's so many things to do. There's so many things to do. We need, for example, the right kind of leadership. Do you know Rwanda was actually, in 2013, if I'm not mistaken, actually removed all visa restrictions for Africans. It says, as long as you're an African and you land in Kigali, nobody will ask you for your visa. You get visa on arrival. Ghana is doing the same thing in July. Ghana is taking that decision. Many African countries, about 14, actually, they either have no visa policy or they have visa at the point of arrival, right? So you need leadership that see beyond the national, that see that, it does not hurt to implement all this vision, all these goals and objectives of the African Union that we all aspire to. You need that. And you need leaders who do not even indirectly encourage or promote xenophobia, right? You need those things. You need policies, you see, because again, many of the masses of our people look to leadership and they take a cue from the leadership, isn't it? They see what leaders are doing, especially when it comes to bringing people together. They see and they follow. They say, okay, that's good. If leaders are implementing xenophobic policies, people would jump through. But if leaders are saying, no, we're taking a stand. This is what we are doing, and see all other African members, citizens of Africa, see them as one, see them as part of you, right? These are the policies, and if you do anything against this, of course, that would be a criminal offense, actually. You would get the kind of vision we want. And we need to empower, we need to give more powers to the African Union. As you can see from my short presentation, the African Union lacks powers to enforce. So we need to start thinking about making the African Union, making us citizens. Because if our leaders violate African Union policies, how much more you citizens? Right? If leaders don't care about the African Union. But if you make the African Union, if kids start seeing the flags of the African Union, if they start seeing African Union processes in what they do, and in civil society, you see, those are symbolic gestures, actually. But symbolic gestures can actually flow into creating concrete policies that would empower the African Union. The African Union has to be empowered. Because if it's not empowered, it cannot drive all of these things. It cannot take us to the promised land. Right? Of course, we need to start thinking also about flexibility arrangements. You see, I know this is, what do you mean by flexibility arrangement? You see, there's a tendency in Africa to believe that all the 54 member states, or 55 member states, will all agree to a decision, and we all implement the decision the same way, in the same way. It is not possible. Even at home, do you and your siblings, do you guys believe in the same thing?
No.
Oh, maybe, or do you want to do things the same way?
No.
You and your sibling.
No.
Now I mean, the siblings are different, even twins. Right? You want to do things, perhaps you might have a common vision. Right? But you want to do it in different ways, isn't it? Exactly. And it applies as well at this level. It applies to the same principle by saying that not all African states are ready, are willing and able to, for example, open up their boundaries and allow Africans to walk in without visas. Not all. But what of the ones that want to do it? What do we do about that? Shouldn't we encourage those that are willing to do it to come together and do it? Isn't it?
Yeah.
So that the rest can see from their failures, from their successes, and say, wow, actually, these guys are actually doing good things. We need to get to that point where we understand that we can all move ahead differently. We all have the same goal, but as there's a typical African proverb that says, no one road leads to the market.
Yeah.
Right? If they say there's a market there by Andres, you know you can take any route, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can even decide to drive from here to Unisa first and come back to Andres, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, you can even decide to take a shortcut, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? You can decide to take different routes and get to the market. So no one road leads to the market. Let's agree that we can move ahead. And of course, let's begin to bring civil society into all our plans, all our initiatives. Let's include young people. And in fact, this also speaks to what you, I know there's something they call the AU Club in WITS, the WITS AU Club, the UCT AU Club. But you, as young Africans, can take initiatives like that as well. At UT, you can say, okay, we want to organize and establish a forum for Africans. We have people who are not from South Africa here, but we want to create a forum where we begin to do things to achieve or to move towards achieving the African Union goal. TAFO there is very involved in the processes of SADC, creating what they call the SADC Lawyers Association, Student Lawyer Association, right? SADC, Tato?
True.
Yeah, SADC Student Lawyer Association, saying, looking at across African universities in South Africa and saying, let students from SADC, not only South African students across SADC, you have Mozambican students, you have students from Zambia, from Zimbabwe. Let's come together and create a SADC Student Lawyer Association where we can be a pressure group, or we can also aid the process of regional integration in SADC, right? Those are good initiatives. And we need, and look, I'm sure you guys know Aliko Dangote. Yeah. You guys know it, and you guys aspire to have Dangote's money, isn't it? Aliko Dangote, the billionaire. And Dangote is investing, I mean, he has taken, for example, he's invested in over 18 African countries, his own personal funds, and saying, we need to start believing in ourselves, right? And these investments have created jobs, isn't it? They've created jobs for people from Zambia. He has investments in Zambia. He has investments here. He has investments in Ethiopia. And creating a Pan-African kind of investment forum where, you see, there are various platforms where civil society can engage. Even the money we say we are looking for. Because remember, our integration project is underfunded. Many of the monies, we still rely on the European Union to fund this project. The African Union, we cannot even fund the African Union. We can't fund SADC. We still have to go to the European Union, to China, to beg, to solicit. Okay, sorry, maybe I should change that.
Not
Solicit.
beg.
Let me use a more politically correct term. To solicit for funds, to fund many of our projects. But we need to start looking inward, to start raising our own funds. How do you think it, I mean, if every time you have to rely on me to give you money for lunch, you see, let's just take that picture at a very micro level. Every time you come to me for lunch, at some point I will start asking you like, oh, I would even want to control you, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, didn't I give you money for lunch yesterday? If I tell you I want to see you now, I want to see you. Who are you to say no? Oh, I have dignity. Wow, you have dignity, but you came to me yesterday. But, you know, so we need to start looking at those processes. And we need to see how we can streamline the AU international processes. So, for example, we need our leaders, again, it goes back to leadership. By understanding that the AU, we need not even create a legal framework. The AU can be part of our processes. You can bring the AU to, I mean, if South Africa, for example, is developing a policy, its national development framework, program, plan, it should bring the AU and SADC into it. Members, so that they can also tell South Africa, like, okay, we see what you're trying to do here, but does it correspond with the objectives at the SADC and at the AU level? You see, we need to start thinking outside of the box. You see, there are many creative and innovative ways in which we can achieve the African Union that we want to achieve. And if I ask all of you here, I ask you, what kind of African Union do you want to see in 2063? No, in fact, I always tell people, what we need is not Agenda 2063. It is Agenda 20 now. Manje. Now. Right now. That's what we need. Not Agenda 2063. That's 50 years from now. We want now. What do we need now? We need the African Union to be at the heart of the process of driving unity. Right? So, on that note, I say thank you all for listening to me. I hope I have not confused you more than you were confused before you started. Yes, thank you all for listening. Yes.
Thank you so much for Batonde.
Thank you.
And actually, for your brilliant presentation,
yes.
and also as you are a lecturer, I need you actually to ask some questions to the student from Chwane University of Technology. That is the first part. And secondly, those students are going to ask to you some questions.
Okay.
But as you are a professor, you should start first. And who is going to give the right answer, you are going to give to him or her a present. So,
I like that. That's my best part.
You have the floor to ask the question to the Chwane University students from the Faculty of Science doing mathematics, water care, and food tech.
Oh, good. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
So, do I need to sit down or?
It depends on you.
Oh, okay. Look, I can stand all day. I'm a teacher, so. So we ask. Okay, I'm not going to be too harsh.
Yeah, don't be harsh. He's science student. No, is he from TET?
So, I ask.
Yeah, ask.
How many? 54. But how many sub-regional organizations do we have in Africa?
8.
No. Okay, I start one. Right. Okay, you. No, you. Yes. You're the first to raise your hand. Oh, you're not speaking.
Okay.
Anymore. Oh.
I think 8.
8.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it.
Look at me. Winner.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm a winner. You win. Hey, Joe.
Can anyone tell me the specific reason or the reason why Or give me 5 reasons. Five reasons, not 1 reason. Give me, because it gets more difficult, isn't it? Remember, imagine the third question I'm going to ask. Okay. Can anyone tell me, give me 5 reasons why the African Union should be empowered? The African Union as an institution. 5 reasons why you think the African Union should be given more powers. 5.
Okay.
I say 5 reasons.
5 reasons.
No,
Okay.
if you stand up, you of course you are going to say 5 reasons.
Okay.
Right? So that
Reduce conflicts. Take us to the promised land.
you give me 5 reasons. But if you give me 4 reasons, obviously you don't get anything. I've read almost doesn't count. Yes, please. 5 reasons.
Yeah, like, wait, I want to answer, but I just want to know, like, the African Union, like, what do they do, like, for information?
I know, because I already gave it to you in the presentation. You just came now. Okay, we'll go back to that, but because if I say it now, then of course, people were here. I mean, I gave a presentation for over 30 minutes, so I think people should be able to at least speak things.
To eradicate poverty.
5 reasons, yes.
What?
5 reasons.
Eradicate
Why do you think
conflict.
we
Take us to
give
the
this
promised
African
land.
Union powers? Look, she's about to.
I don't have 5 reasons, but I'm just going to give out what I think.
To
Okay,
be
please.
economically advantaged.
Firstly, the ease of access for Africans to
Leave
move in between.
Yes, 1.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Secondly, it will be much easier and much more financially for African businesses to be established in other African countries.
Yes, 2. No, you're getting there. I'm rooting for you, actually. 3.
The third one,
Yes. You can go
for
to
students,
Yes.
African students, all those who are in African institutions, they can be able to pay the same fees as in, like, for example, Cameroon students in South Africa can be able to pay the same fees as South African students.
Okay. 4.
The use of visas.
No.
No, you talked about
This will limit, if our leaders can be able to pull this through, it may be an enforcement, or it can seem as a sign to reduce conflict within Africa.
Africa, yes. Conflict, yes.
That's the one.
Number 5.
That's the one.
And the last thing. Oh my God.
You will get it. I'll wait for you. Actually, if I have all the time to wait, you will get this number 5.
If it gets to a point where we Africans use the same currency all throughout Africa, then it will benefit Africa as a continent on its own. And we will have more investors from Africa instead of having to rely on European countries to come and establish businesses so that they can hire our people, but then again maximize our profits. So now we can maximize our profits ourselves.
Yeah. I said no. Yeah. Those guys so much.
Tell me, you guys are science students, right?
This guy
Because I need to check again. Now we're moving
with
to
technologists.
what I think.
Not all are science students.
Not all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen, you're a law student.
Let's see. Okay. What role? And again, you give me. I also want 5 answers. 5. You see, it's getting more difficult. 5 answers. It comes in 5, isn't it? What role do you think you, as a young person, can play in advancing the cause of Africa's development? 5. But of course, if you ramble on and on, you will not definitely will not get it. I want you to give me concrete an example. 5. You want Priscilla to do it again? Yes. No, she's not the only one here. You already won, exactly. I want someone who has not participated. You as a young person, how do you think you can
the
contribute
isolation
to
That is
the
there for
advancement.
like foreign students in our things in our universities.
You want 5 weeks? 5. Is 5 too much?
Yes, it's too much.
3. 3. No, it can't be 1, obviously. 3.
I
Yes,
only
the
know
gentleman.
one.
Our students, like youth, right? Okay, we should learn on like buying like more products from Africa
How
rather
do you
than
know that the
products from other countries like
True.
Europe. And is that one?
Yeah.
Okay. Second, it's to like to invest, like to start more business in
Yeah, no, on the continent. Youth-based businesses.
yeah
To empower other youth.
yeah which improves the economy, like the currency.
What if you don't have the finances
There are
to
financial.
do that? Remember, I mean, you still have huge unemployment rate among youth on this continent. So what if you
start
don't
a
have
business?
access to find out?
When you start
You know,
out of
There are
to do that,
beauty,
what will you do?
which are
it's not
investing.
temperament.
There are companies which are investing in young entrepreneurs.
Entrepreneurs, right? So you approach those companies and you give them perfect plan.
Yeah, you give them a business plan, just like NIDA.
Mhm.
See, there's a lot of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said, no, that's number 2.
Thank you.
Perhaps you will take over from where you.
Okay, the other one is and youth, like they should be more involved with the economic activities.
No, you
No,
still
you
said
said that.
from your number 1 and 2 actually.
They have these
You
things.
just-
AU thing is in school, right? We don't have one.
No,
Tell them
I
about
wanted
it.
to-
Oh, this guy.
Okay, that's the last
Last
is-
one, yeah, we're waiting for the last one.
Okay, please repeat the question again.
I'm saying, you as a young person, how do you think you can contribute towards advancing this African integration idea? Making African unity. What do you think you can do as a young person? Because the 2 answers you've given to me is very nationalistic. I'm looking at answers that actually speak to African unity, that goes beyond what you see around you.
Like, okay, to create awareness.
To create awareness, right? Fantastic.
Allah, you got a present.
Still the same question. Anyone wants to take a stab? No, he has not answered everything. Like I can still tell you about 20 to 30 things.
Yes,
Like
you
this.
know. We send students who don't know.
Yeah, I think it goes like this.
Like this.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
to you, yeah.
To you. Like,
Yeah,
like that's
classmates,
so
like these guys can do it to classmates or in a school event, like they can teach
We can have that AU thing.
You can do that. You know, he has given you one. You can actually
Yes.
say, look, this is what you're doing. You're going into nursery schools and primary schools to talk more about African. Yeah.
Yes.
Like in my community, I would create an institution whereby like it consists of all
What's
the
the money to
African
pay in
students.
institutions?
Like in TUT, we don't have any institution like that. So creating that
Mr.
will
Eroko.
give us the opportunity to interact with students from outside, not only the South African students only.
Good.
And then also the effect of education, like in terms of leadership. If we like elect leaderships, like okay, people who are more educated, then that will empower the African continent, and then it will increase. Like,
So what you're saying, are you saying that you as a young person, you would say to yourself that what you require in a leadership or in a leader is the ability to, what you require in a leader is the ability you're looking for the leader who is very conscious about African development, isn't it? A leader who is able to bring about the changes or the things we have discussed here. Alright? A leader who understands that. So you would ask, for example, if there's a forum where you engage with the leader, you would ask like, so what are your plans about African development?
like okay, I will ask him or her like to give me his or her 5-year plan. But like in this 5 years, this is what I want to see. This and this be done. This
Bring it.
Africa.
Okay. What the third one?
And then like I said, creating the constitution, like their this thing, the unity.
No.
To reduce conflict, like
Okay, how would you as a young? I'm saying you as a young person.
That's what
You
I'm
can't
saying,
stop
but
war in Uganda.
I will start by creating an institution. Like activity, we don't have.
That's one. Yes. Then you mentioned two, right? You said you're looking for a leader. Who is who's the guy who grasps the whole idea of Africa's development and unity, isn't it? Then the third one, I know you can do it. So how do you do the issues of the republic as a young person? How are you going to ensure that, for example, in the community where you stay? Yeah, of course. I'm saying, but what would be your contribution to the bigger agenda? You can't say, oh yeah, because I'm not xenophobic, I don't care. Even if they're losing other shop, but at least I'm not xenophobic, and you sit in your room.
Treat a trade show, like a trade show, yeah.
Yeah, or giving.
Just give her the present. She's talking, give her the present.
But I want something completely different.
You're complaining and you did not say
Oh, you want to ask a
anything.
question? Oh, okay.
You mentioned something about Burundi.
Yeah.
And that it violated its
No, the president.
It was validated, yeah, even as Article 23 of the African Union, Article 30 of the African Union Constitution.
But then why can't we kick out, not necessarily kick out, we're trying to obtain the agenda 63.
Yeah.
2063.
Yeah.
But then why can't we just shift it out and let any trade with other African countries just be at a halt so that it can look as if it's being isolated. So
Okay.
that it should stop what it's doing and then.
Oh, okay. Because I saw a political economist working, so perhaps I'm a bit. How do we answer that question? You see, we have to go into the heart of political economy. You see, Africans don't even trade with each other. African countries don't trade with each other.
Yes.
It's about 11% the last time I checked. So there's really no incentive. If you suspect, for example, Burundi, you say, oh, there's no trade. Burundi is not really trading much with the rest of Africa. So it makes no difference, right? But you can suspend Burundi. And everybody thought Burundi would be suspended at the last AU summit. At least to send a message to Burundi because it violated those principles. Not only the African Union principles, but the East African Community principles. But again, it goes back to issues of leadership. You see, many African countries, many African leaders routinely violate the African Union principles. So even if you see, it's you first have to if you even kick out Burundi in that case, certain leaders, if they kick out Burundi, they will be very hypocritical in their stance. Remember that the same thing Burundi did in terms of suppression of political voices, Museveni did the same in Uganda. And the same Museveni was appointed as the mediator, as someone who should go and talk to the people in Uganda. But he keeps violating this principle for many years. So it goes to the issues of, back to the issues of political leadership, and to understand that these principles are sacrosanct. If anybody violates it, regardless of how big you are or how small you are, whatever, in the African Union principle, you can't be, as you say, you can be kicked out. But even without sin, you pick up the first one. It's quite unfortunate, yes.
So I've got a question. In your presentation, you covered, you mentioned that one of the problems for the AU to be initiated, I'm not sure. But then you mentioned that you find that a country belongs to multiple regional structures. So what I wanted to ask is that, what effect does that have on the community, on the currency of our country?
You see, it does not really have effect on the currency. You see, one of the biggest implications of that, negative implication obviously, is the fact that many of these countries, remember, your contribution to the regional structures, be it at the AU level or at the sub-regional organization level, your contribution is tied to your GDP. So that is why Nigeria will pay more than Burundi, obviously, to be a member of the African Union. That is why, you know, South Africa would, again, pay more than Swaziland to be a member of SADC. So it's tied to your GDP. Now, again, your ability to pay your subscription fees is also, it's dependent on how rich you are as a country, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you would have many obligations. Some will say bring $500,000, you know, and these things are calculated in dollars. Now, if you don't even have enough money to pay for one, but you're a member of 4, the possibility is that you're not going to even pay for anything. There's not going to be any payment. So, and if you don't pay for anything, right, and that's why the AU actually says it in Article 23, it says if you do not pay, there's a possibility of suspending you from participating in the African Union processes because it also hurts the organization because you've not paid. Now, if you do not pay all of those things, then the AU is short of funds, isn't it? And if the AU is short of funds, what happens? The AU goes back to EU, China, and the rest to, I don't want to use the word they, solicit.
No.
Solicit for funds and say, okay, please. And you know, actually, in 2014, if I'm not mistaken, 2014, 2015, the 2014-2015 financial year, the AU was financed up to the tune of 72% by EU, China, and the rest. So Africa, 54 member states only financed it to the tune of 28%. So you begin to understand the kind of problems we are dealing with. And again, it's based on all of those things. Lack of political will, and because some countries do not even have money to pay because they belong to so many regional organizations. So it's not so much about the implications for the currency. It's about and the AU has said it. Make sure you belong to just one. Cut down your membership. Just belong to one so that you're able to at least concentrate your attention on one. I don't think we've gone into the question session.
Yes, question.
Yeah.
Yes, give the question.
Yes, I'm still asking questions. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, being a South African citizen, what role do you think South Africa can play in advancing African unity? South Africa as a government. So, for example, if you are in charge of advising the government, you're a principal advisor, or maybe you're the president, what role do you think the South African government can play in deepening African unity?
I think we should first enforce it in schools, make it part of the curriculum.
You think the South Africa should take that decision?
Yeah.
To definitely enforce the EU constitution in school, especially at primary level.
Oh, you are thinking that we should start from the primary level, not even the university. And why should we start from the primary
Because
level?
if you teach a child at a younger age, as they grow up, they will start learning more about it and then get used to the idea of it and then implement the work.
Okay, what else? Oh, no, okay, maybe the last one. I know, yeah, what more can South African government do? Considering the fact that South African, this is one of the biggest economies on the continent, and one of the richest, of course, maybe not as rich as it used to be like 10 years ago or whatever, but still one of the richest countries.
And recently our president went to the Middle East to find investors to invest in that Qatar, yeah, that one. I think we should start, instead of, we can go to the Middle East and stuff, but I think we should also be find investors in Africa as well. Because if we find investors in Africa, then they will try to, boost themselves by dealing, because if you associate someone from a powerful level to a lower level, that person will try by all means to be in the same level as that person. So if we try to motivate them to try and invest in small business in South Africa, then the economies may even boost each other.
Okay.
And we have a high currency than a country from a lower level, from a small scale country in Africa. So I
Okay, but let me problematize it a bit for you. So you get someone to come invest from, you get like Rwanda's business person to come invest here, but the investment policy or the investment environment has not been, has not been relaxed to a point where it will be easy for that one to invest. You know what I'm saying? So it's one thing to bring people, it's one thing to say, Dangote, come and invest. But it's another thing to say, okay, if you come here to invest, these are the things we'll do in the spirit of Pan-Africanism, isn't it? This is how we make your businesses operate or allow you to operate without too much hassle across the continent. So I think when you think in that way, I understand, of course, you can also boost your economy, but you also say the Pan-African ideals should also feed into that. Into saying, yes, because you are an African, and we want you to invest in Africa, and you see this place as your home. These are the things we want you to do. Of course, on the condition that you better the lives of South Africans, obviously, but also better your own pockets.
Okay, I think in a nutshell, I'm trying to say that charity begins at home.
Yes.
Before we go to other ones, let's try to make our neighbors more comfortable or boost them, and then we go to the other ones.
So, oh yes.
I think also we need to encourage philanthropy among us.
Hey, wait.
Because
Hey, wait.
we cannot be waiting for the bills and the gains to come to us. We know us.
Yeah.
So that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you very much. Because I want to thank you especially for that, because I couldn't think of any other question to ask until you mentioned that, and that has opened my mind to another question I'm asking, which is, how do we find? Huh?
She was just asking.
She was asking a question.
What's philanthropy?
It's more like philanthropy is when like Bill Gates has money and he wants to give to poor.
Yeah, exactly. Like Motepe has given out of his wealth. 90% of his wealth.
No, but then
The next question.
it's not in the case of philanthropy. It's in the case of.
We have spoken. We discussed the idea that African countries are not able to finance the AU, and many of them will say we cannot finance because we are poor. We cannot finance because we and things like that. They will give you all sorts of excuses. But how do you think we can improve? We can finance this institution ourselves. What measures do you think we should take? How can we think outside of the box in terms of financing the AU? I will not ask you 5 here because even a PhD student will struggle to come up with 10 questions there. For how do you think we can finance the African Union? Because we can, but we keep saying, you please.
My 2 cents again. Africa has money. All we need to fight is corruption.
Yes.
Because that's where our money goes to.
Yes.
That's my
Good.
2 cents.
2 cents.
But I'm still looking for more. I'm actually looking for more.
They credit money illicit.
Yes, please. Illicit of funds. Okay. Perhaps it's small cents.
Mrs. 2 cents.
We ensure that they know
Tabo,
we don't have
where's your 2 cents?
we stop corruption so that we have enough money to fund. But okay, what other means do you think we can explore in terms of finance? Because we keep saying there's no money, but we all know that billions of dollars keep escaping this continent. They come from somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah, bro.
Okay, so means we start with the Priscilla, then we come to you.
Can I add on to what Mark said?
Yes.
Africa has money, and I believe that our leaders get too much. So instead of having to spend that money in awarding or giving to our leaders, why can't we like reduce and use some of that money for the in spite having to.
Okay, yeah, maybe not what I'm looking for, but again, you can give her another one.
Yes.
You know what I'm looking for.
Okay.
Because I want you guys to give me, okay, yeah, we reduce the amount or the salary of the president, stop corruption. option, but I want more concrete means, but giving you like a business plan.
I think we should increase trade among African countries. As you said, only 11 to 15%.
11 to 10 actually,
11 to 15%.
11.
Yeah, 11% countries trade within us. So by that way, if we increase trade amongst ourselves,
then we have enough money.
Then
in fact, that's kind of
will develop, then they contribute more to the union.
Yeah, you can use it.
I think we should increase, we should develop new skills. Yeah, skills, we should have more skills, and then share skills together with other African countries.
Okay.
Yeah, and then in that way, for us to use our resources, we will be able to, for our resources to benefit us than to benefit the outsiders.
Okay, you're mentioning something now, but or you're getting onto something. You're saying, so if we share our skills, how could that, what's the link between that and...
Yeah, it's the link to be able to produce in our resources, like gold. We do gold, London is calling. So instead of London calls, us will call. And then that way we'll
That one, he deserves a cup of coffee.
For the t-shirt?
Yes.
Oh, we also have t-shirts in daughter. T-shirt.
Okay.
T-shirt.
The specific provision. There are two provisions of the African Union. Two articles that speaks to the objectives and principles. And I just mentioned it was on the board. Give me those two provisions. Articles, so it will be Article 10 and 12. It will be Article 20 and 23. But there are two articles that speaks to the objectives and the principles. It speaks to the vision that we aspire. Because, I mean, you won't get a t-shirt there. I think you have to dig in. Yes.
The visions of the African Union that I had.
The articles. I want the specific article. I want specific articles. Okay, let's use the visions. Okay, please. I know it's a bit difficult for non-law students to think about. Yeah? No. Articles 3 and? 6. No, not 6.
No.
It's Article 3. No. Article 3 and? 3 and 4. Yes.
I know they'll share the t-shirt. They'll share the t-shirt. They'll share the t-shirt. You'll share the t-shirt. They'll share the t-shirt.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, actually, Professor Babatunde gave you some present, isn't it? Via question. So, actually, I need you just within 5 minutes to ask all questions related to the African unity and African union.
Yeah, ask the question. Where's my question?
You can ask the question in order, please. Yes.
How do you be a part of, as we are, how can we be part of it? Instead of just reading on it on the internet, but how can we actually be part of it? Isn't it like an organization?
No, there's, you see, there's at VITS and UCT they have the AU club. But the thing is this, you have to take initiatives as well. That's what I'm saying. Like, start from somewhere, not necessarily because you want to be a part of the African Union. It's your vision, right? It's the goal. So maybe someday, someone recognizes your efforts, or even if they don't recognize it, at least you know you have contributed to something. There's the Pan-African Youth organization, but it's not very effective. But the whole idea is to have that PY, they call themselves the PYU or PYO. I can, you know.
So how you get involved so that we can?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like there's not much activities from there. Or you can also look at ECOSOC. check, because ECOSOC is the platform through which civil society can participate in the African Union processes. So you can go to the website of ECOSOC, AU ECOSOC. They have representatives, I think, across the continent, and you can also talk to, I think, also the youth the National Youth Development Agency might actually have more information in regards to that, because the ECOSOC is meant to have a representation in all African countries actually, to allow for civil society participation.
Yeah, next question.
Yeah.
You said something about Burundi being kicked out, right? Like, what happens to a country when they're kicked out of, like, what happens to them?
No, they're not part of the process. They're out of the process. So they can't participate in summits. They can't participate, they can't vote on anything at the EU. So they're just out of the process. It's just like us having a club here and you say, look, what's your name? Timothy. And you say, Timothy, you know, we have suspended you because, for example, you were taking our money, or because you drink too much or whatever. So we said you no longer attend meetings. So anytime we have meetings, you are not part of it. Anytime we vote, you are not part of it. If there are benefits to be derived because of that, because of your participation, you lose those benefits. So you're completely, you're kind of excommunicated, so to speak.